Ryan, your heart rate is 195. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. This is
Scary.
Life flashes before eyes.
Welcome to another race analysis episode, this time also from the Valley of the Sun Criterium, from the stage race. This is the final stage. This is the P1 race, and we are on board with pro mountain biker Ryan Standish. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back.
Sure, man. Your sponsors, you should lay those out for us.
Sponsors, we in the last one we did the road stuff with Ventum Racing and Orange Seal. And then now I can talk about the Dropper Gear Racing, which is the mountain bike team, and we're on Intense Kenda KS, amongst others as well.
Sweet.
So yeah, excited.
So you're on board the Ventum NS1 right now, which is
right in the crit.
Yes, aero bike. So, and then we also have Keegan Swenson with us. Stan's Pivot, Monster Hydro's Keegan Swenson.
Hey guys.
You're in this analysis because you're in this race.
Yeah, just went by wide. I'm actually right there, so just sneaking in here and there,
We may also add that between the two of us, we had 4 GoPros, and only one of them came out with any footage.
Hey, we got one. That's okay. And then we also have Clip Bar Racing's Pete Morris.
Hey guys.
Pete, this is so actually Ryan, this is your first race of the season, I think.
Yeah, besides the TT and the road race in the days before this one.
Right. So there's a lot of ways we could go with this one. Legion's in the race, Pete, lots of different things. But where do you want to take this? What do you want to talk about?
I think we should talk about how kind of hectic and scary the first race of the year is, and how it takes a little while to get your feet underneath you. And we can watch Ryan kind of do that over the course of this crit and talk about the stuff he does really well and the stuff as he grows as a rider over the course of this 60 minutes.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? Like this adjustment period happens though for everybody. Like Ryan, how are you feeling in this race? Were you nervous with it being the first crit of the season?
I think no matter which crit of the season is, I'm always nervous.
I'll attest to that.
But the first one of the year is definitely always, like you said, getting your feet underneath you, remembering how to ride and move through the bunch, especially when it is sometimes so packed and sketchy, and just kind of figuring out the way, the ins and outs of it again.
Yeah, there's an adaptation period for everybody, right, Pete? Like every year.
I think everybody has it, and it definitely even affects me. It's hard to remember how close you have to ride to everybody and how you kind of let things hang out and how long you wait to break and just what all that feels like and how snappy you have to be. It's not just natural.
And how far away from everyone you ride.
Like this, yeah. Nice and safe out here, Ryan.
In the wind.
Ryan, for a point of reference, what's your threshold roughly at this point?
I say it's 400 all the time, but I think it's probably closer to 420.
Yeah, I think so. Let's pin you at 420. I think that's better. You always say
it is a better number.
Yeah, you always say 400, and I don't know. I think that's entirely wrong. So, so when we see big numbers here, we should expect big numbers. But just the same, like right here, you're just like powering through, right? Like. And that's almost the more dangerous thing. Like if you suck, then like you'll be getting dropped and you'll start to realize really quickly, I need to be efficient. But you're strong enough to put yourself in like a whole world of hurt pretty quick, just because you're strong enough to ride alongside the group for a while instead of riding in the draft of the group. So when us average people do it, it can be really bad, right, Pete?
Yeah, it would just explode. It'd take like 30 seconds, and then you'd be like, oh, I can't ride to the side of this group anymore going 32 miles an hour. But Ryan can just do that, so he doesn't have to worry. And that gives him some time to get back into the fold, and like now he's finally behind people again. So
yeah, it's funny that you guys bring that up because I did race on the road in Australia a few years ago, and my teammates would always give me a hard time about that same thing. Like, man, you gotta ride in the group. Like, you gotta stop riding out on the road by yourself, like away from the group. You gotta save some energy.
What are some other things that we do, Pete, that like these early season things, first race of the year, like some of the efficiency mistakes that we make?
Yeah, I think let's start with the riding to the side of the group, or just away from people. You can totally do that, and it kind of gives you more opportunities, but you have to always be putting out more power. So if you're like really squeezing through corners and taking advantage of momentum and things like that, that's hard to remember how to do right away. But kind of giving yourself more open space allows you to do that more often. But it's also just things like remembering how hard you have to corner, and remembering not to touch your brakes, and you know, it's a lot of putting a lot of effort into those efficiency gains right from the beginning makes a big difference. But you can't remember it all at once.
Right. One of the things that I noticed too is that there's so much horsepower in this race, and it is such a big field. I think you guys had somewhere around 80 riders or so in this field. It was big.
Yeah, I think so.
I think, yeah.
So because of that too, like the accelerations out of these turns, just every time, like Ryan, we'll look at this actually in your race analysis here. It's like out of every single turn, it's like over 600 watts every single time, right? And that's like a big thing that I think is, you don't realize it in the moment until it's too late, right? And that's when things get really difficult. Looking at your race file, Ryan, let's look at how much time you spent above 600 watts. Sound good?
Okay.
And we'll make it longer than 2 seconds. And if we search, you went over 600 watts to over 229 times in this race. So like, that is really, really hard. And like, I don't think that if you rode extremely efficiently, the number would be like down to 0 or anything like that. This race was just hard, period. But definitely, Pete, like this is the sort of race where you want to focus, like you want to double down on being efficient because of that, right?
Yeah, and we were sort of laughing, like having the pace being so high, you guys were really getting the whip cracked on you in the back of the field. And so I bet the majority of those are when you're in the latter half of the field. But there's kind of another thing where every time you have to coast, or every time you do coast, you have to make up some of that somewhere on the course. So if you coast into a corner, and then you're going to have to accelerate out even harder. And so maybe it would only have been 500 watts instead of 600 watts, or, you know, it's not a huge difference, but over the course of the race, it actually does pan out a little differently. For even a rider of your caliber, Ryan.
So, Pete, should we fast forward to a different point in the race where we can start to see Ryan smooth things out a little bit?
Yeah, let's go about halfway through the race, 30 minutes in. So here we are about 30 minutes into the race, and as we've watched you kind of get familiar again with everything, Ryan, you've done a way better job at slotting in, and then just like right
Even
here,
look at this right here. Yeah.
Take advantage of people slowing down, and you just put down some power, and all of a sudden you're like 12th wheel. So how did you start feeling kind of midway through the race?
Yeah, I think, well, I'll go back to earlier in the race because it's relevant, but like giving or having like those little, leaving like a bike length or half a bike length even, so that I could have time to react if something happened in front of me, because I was still timid and nervous about being around other people. And then as the race went on, about halfway through, we're looking at here, it's like sort of was more comfortable sitting right on the wheel, saving a little bit of energy and being able to move up. I think the first half I was probably, I don't know, 30, 40, 50th wheel. And here I'm sort of top in that top 20, and able to surge a little bit less and be more comfortable sitting right on the riders around me and in front of me.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the other things we should talk about is getting used to even in a big race or a little race. There's like a threshold where if you can get past this threshold, it's much easier to hang out in the top 15 or 20 wheels than it is to hang out in that 30th through 60th. But it's really hard to break through the threshold. So you have to kind of put extra energy into getting in the front of the race. And that's really hard for a lot of people. And it's hard at the beginning of the season to remember how hard you have to push to get through there.
Yeah, Keegan, you were mentioning that kind of sat. Where did you notice that was in this race?
I feel like in this one, like it's kind of where Pete was saying, right around like 15th to 20th was kind of where that threshold was. And if you got behind that, then it got harder to stay like in the bunch and guys were blowing up. And the yo-yo is pretty bad. And if you could just like use your bullets and be efficient and kind of stay in the front, it just was that much easier. Like you can see by Ryan's power when he's in the front, he's like staying under 500 watts a lot more out of the turns, where he was when he was in the back. It was like 700 out of every turn, and like the pace was like, I was in the race as well, so like the pace was the same. It just was like where you were in the bunch made a huge difference on the amount of power you had to put out of each turn.
Right, and Ryan trying to move up right there, but that was good. You made up. Well, then you went wide, but you made up.
It was sixes. It came out the same.
That's right. But you made up a position at least right there, which was good. And that's the sort of thing where like you start to like get a little bit more comfortable and you start to feel out those opportunities to move forward. And one thing really quick though, you kind of don't want to move too far up, right, Ryan? Like if you get too far up, then you end up just working really hard. So it's kind of like sticking around that threshold. Is that kind of the spot where you want to be, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I definitely coming into the race, Keegan and I had talked, there he is, 74. We had kind of talked about trying not to do any work or be like in the front where you like inevitably you do end up on the front or doing work. Trying to stay in the bunch and save energy was kind of our plan, to sort of save it for the last 10 minutes, last 5 or 6 laps of the race to try and make a move. But as we'll see, that didn't end up happening.
Something about best laid plans and mice and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're pretty close to the front here. And when you find yourself on the front, what were you thinking, Ryan? Like there was really nobody in front of you there. Were you thinking, this is my time to go? It looks like you just kind of sat up. What was your plan?
Yeah, I sat up, but I wasn't sitting up and coasting. But then I knew once I was near the front, if I wasn't doing much work, there was definitely going to be someone come around who was going to do the work or attack or something. So I kind of put a little more, turned it up a little bit, but not punchy, but just ramped it up so that when that someone did come around, to sort of be ready and not have to do that huge surge.
That's like a good tactic, right? Like Pete, if you're on the front and not doing work, get ready to get smacked.
Yeah, and that's perfect. Ryan did it exactly right, where you don't want to put a whole bunch of effort into it, but you know that someone's going to come around, and especially in a race that's been fast all day, and it happens in all categories, where if the race is going slow and you're on the front, just give it a little bit of juice so that the differential isn't so high when people start coming past you, and then you don't kind of slot back so far in the race.
It's that riding tempo on the front thing. Like it really makes people mad that want the race to be surgy. And while it may not be like the most efficient thing, it's kind of like the lesser of two evils sometimes, right, Pete? Like you pick to ride tempo at the front because you just don't want to have a huge acceleration to deal with.
Yeah, and I'm in the boat where I would much prefer all day hard tempo where the surges just smash me. So I'll take a couple, tens of seconds of tempo to miss on 1,000 watt surge for every single time. But different riders respond differently to that. So if you're the kind of surgy rider, you better hit them really hard before they get a chance to start riding tempo in the front.
Yeah, because it's pretty tough to hit him with a big differential, because tempo up at the front can still be pretty fast. So Pete, now like the race is still not really forming into anything in particular. Legion has been doing a pretty good job of kind of controlling the race, but not doing so at the front. Good line there, by the way, Ryan. It's funny, like in the earlier part of the race, you were inside, and like right here, so you're moving up, and you're not doing a whole lot of wattage. And on the other side, you were definitely having to work. So like, it's cool to see. Like you already, like everyone watching this, you'll get comfortable throughout the race if you focus on doing the right things, right? Like it can change for sure. So Pete, do we want to fast forward to another part?
Yeah, let's check out last 10 minutes and see what happens once Legion takes over and how you guys' race goes.
Sounds good. Let's go to it. So we're at the end of the race now, or near the end of the race, last little bit of it, and the race has changed. Like Legion's moving to the front, they're starting to control things, and the pace is way up Oh, and you can, Jesus.
1,300 watts.
So Pete, what's going on from your perspective here?
Oh man! So as soon as the front of the race
again.
gets, God, as soon as the front of the race gets grabbed and the pace gets upped, you can see how it just really weighs on everybody who's not in those front 10 or 15 riders. So when the front's going super hard, you can see how much harder the back has to go. And so once you kind of got into this position, Ryan, it seemed like you started to revert to a little more just V10 just power, panic. If you will.
Relying on remembering, he's like, oh yeah, I have 10 cylinders.
Here we go.
Here we go, like that.
Was that what happened, Ryan? Did you find like yourself like more, instead of focusing on efficiency, suddenly it was just like playing the race game, or what was going on for you?
Yeah, I think here, like later in the race, I knew like Keegan and I wanted to be near the front so we could hopefully our plan was to launch an attack like with five or six to go, and I think here at this point I was panicking, like I need to be more further forward. This is probably me saying, Keegan, I'm here, let's get ready to go. Like we're on the back of the Legion train here.
Us two mountain bikers versus Legion, let's do it.
Yeah, we got this. But you look like Keegan's out in the wind just as much as I am here. Like,
yeah, it was like, it's a tricky area there. I mean, it's like you can either be in the wind or you can kind of get in the group, but then you end up further back. And at this point in the race, I feel like it's more important, at least to me, to stay, like have good positioning. And even if it is taking a little wind, than it is to like be in the back and risk like someone blowing up and taking you off the back with them. So if you're feeling okay, I think it is a little bit worth that gamble to take a little wind and try and stay up there.
Here I go again.
Another 1,300 watts. Jeez, that was a big one for a while.
And then we sit up and soft pedal.
That's like a big thing that happens though toward the end of this race, Pete, right? Like we noticed that it was really hard in the first portion of the straightaways, and then it was easier toward the end. Why do you think that was happening?
We can actually see what's happening right now. Legion does a really good job of doing those sharp accelerations straight out of the corner and keeping the speed high, and then they kind of ease up just slightly and shut down one side of the field so no one can come by on the right side, and then on the windier side or the shorter side where it's hard to keep your speed up, they just shut that down. And so effectively what they're doing is they're making every single straightaway like a third shorter, so you just have less time to move up. And I'm sure you guys could feel that, right? Like, didn't it feel like a much more frantic moving up, and everybody had less time to do it, and it made it way harder, right?
Yeah, it really just felt like you had like a few seconds out of every turn to move up, and then the speed got so high that like no one could really come around or do much anyway.
Unless you're Ryan right here.
And I think...
Unless you're Ryan right here.
Well, I just remembered this because seeing people coming up on the right side, like... Part of me sitting out in the wind and making myself wide was so that people couldn't come up along the sides. So you'll see, especially in the start finish straight, this section here was bad too, but like I'll stay really wide so that no one, like people have less chance to come around me. I don't know if that's like, it's probably not the smartest thing like efficiency wise, but I was like, I would rather not have people come around me and like be really doing it in a really sketchy way. And that's like, that was part of my thing, is like, I don't want to get crashed out by someone who's trying to go through a gap that's not there. So I was trying to close that for my own safety more than being a smart racer.
Well, and protecting that inside is super important. Like if you had a sprinter on your wheel, that's pretty much the dream, where you have someone.
Especially, yeah, see where they come up the right here? See Keegan coming up, like right on the fence there?
Because that fence also funneled down pretty tight, so you had to like be wary that like, oh, you're going to get shut down.
Good move here. Like moving up around the outside there.
Kind of.
And then getting pushed into the gutter.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, like your thought process went from, oh man, this is a crit, this is terrifying, to, okay, I think I got this, like I'm moving through again and I know how to be efficient. and now it's like just don't die, right?
Yeah, it's like this is terrifying.
Yeah. I think the other part is like a lot of the guys who are here to race crits and to win started getting a lot more aggressive at the end of the race. And I mean, Ryan and I are here to, get some fitness and get some race miles under the belt. And I think for us, it was mainly like trying to stay off the pavement. So that was the other thing I was thinking. I was like, well, these guys are putting up a fight. Like, I'm not here to push elbows and end up in the gutter. So,
right. Priorities.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're also here to get some killer GoPro footage too. So for what it's worth,
We tried.
We didn't do that.
which unfortunately, we only got one camera.
That
but that's
camera
okay.
right there is not doing anything, if you're wondering.
Just there. So yeah, you can see already like how much people are really just like pushing, and see that swerving that Legion's doing from that left to right controlling. Then they're going to go back left here. And all of that is actually based off of audible cues that they're shouting out. So it makes it really sketchy. And like you said, you kind of want to hold position. There I am on the inside of the turn, sitting there watching it unfold. You kind of want to watch, or it's scary, right? Like, because if you move up and you find a hole, you have no clue if that's going to get dramatically closed, right?
Yeah, and really it's there. It's not necessarily sketchy, but it's definitely, it just makes everything so much harder on the people behind. But it's all about, they really force the way to get in before the fence. But that's why it's scary, is because you have to kind of do riskier moves to get up and into that train, or off the front of the train, or right kind of like on Justin or Corey's wheel. But if there's 25 guys trying to do that all the time, it's really hard. And you have to do things like this.
Yep. Jeez. And there's a fellow mountain biker 2 wheels ahead of you, I believe, Trudeau, up there.
Red bike, black kit.
Yeah. So, so another huge surge. You've been doing a bunch of them. Ryan, your heart rate is 195. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh.
This is scary.
Life flashes before eyes immediately.
Yeah.
So now your heart rate it's probably going to pick up even higher right there because you nearly died. That section right there with those cones was a good spot to move up, but also terrifying if you didn't pick one side or the other, and that was good evidence of it. So at this point, Ryan, your plan to go off the front, what were you thinking? Were you thinking still of trying that, or was it just pure just hold on and don't die? What was the thought?
Well, I'd actually, one of these laps I saw, because Josh Berry ended up off the front by himself somewhere, like in the last 6 laps, and he didn't want to be there, as you can imagine. And when he came back and he saw me, and he was like, we got to keep we have to get some people off the front. That's the only way anyone will have any chance against Legion. And I think I wanted to, but you look where I am now, and it's pretty much too late to go from wherever I am, 30, 40th wheel, to move up and then go off the front. Just I still, in my mind, I was like, that's still gonna happen, but then we'll see that it does not.
It was just it was difficult to get Ryan and I in both the right spot at the right time, and put the field to have slowed down just a hair so we could go off the front. Because the problem is when it's going fast, I mean, for us to get off the front, that's 800 watt effort, and then we had to maintain 450 or whatever to try and even maintain a gap. But when Legion has 8 or 10 guys hitting the front at 500 watts, it really wasn't going to happen at this point in the race.
Right. Yeah, it just shows how tough it is when a team is controlling the race like this. It's just brutal. So Ryan, your heart rate's still basically where it was. Nice move, trying to go there to get some positions. Do you cut back in tight? Not really tight, but so you're kind of 6s coming out of that one. Another over 1,000 watt sprint or little surge coming out of that. Ryan, do you know what your peak power is?
No. Probably around 1,600, I'd say.
Yeah,
if I was to
it's
guess.
Pretty high. And you were getting close to that, man, quite a few times. And I think right here your check engine light comes on, and then the transmission falls out and drags on the pavement.
Just
oil everywhere.
But still doing 450 watts.
I know. Just to try not to get clobbered from behind, right?
Yeah. And this is the last lap, and I knew that I wasn't going to be there in the sprint or anything, so I didn't see any reason to fight for that.
Meanwhile, I was hoping Ryan was on my wheel so I could lead him out. It turns out, because I was because I was in a good spot. I was sitting 6th or 7th wheel. I was like, oh, we got this. And I looked back, and he had pulled the
He's
ripcord pretty
not
hard
there anymore.
But we
It's
tried.
pretty awesome.
But then you still racing, you know.
I know. Look at this, man. Still 600 watts. That guy just definitely outsprinted you for like 40 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. So, man, like this is, I think, a cool example, Pete, of the fact that everybody goes through this adaptation period when you get used to racing again and getting comfortable, and then also like kind of an external perspective on how to keep your wits about you, right?
Yeah, it's really hard to pay attention to what you're doing in the middle of a race where you're going 30 miles an hour and there's a bunch of things happening. But if you can kind of focus on a couple easy things that you're not super good at, whether that is like don't slide out into the wind or only do it when it's actually going to benefit you, or like really, really focus on not breaking into that corner or whatever it is. But picking a couple things makes a huge difference, and you can just do that race after race, season after season, and then all of a sudden, you don't start each season quite so far back. But you did awesome. Both of you guys did awesome. It's crazy. That last 10 laps in a real race is like, there's like nothing else like it, I think.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's fun. It's scary, but
like,
it's fun.
It was terrifying, and then afterward I was like, man, I need to find some more crits to do. Like, that was kind of cool.
It's super addicting, right? Yeah, they're a blast. Well, thanks, guys. We appreciate you doing this. Ryan, where can people follow you and find out more about you?
On Instagram at Ryan Standwich.
Correct. Just how it's said. Yep.
how it sounds.
Yeah. And Keegan, for you?
And
I'm over on Instagram at Kegels99.
Awesome. Perfect. And then everybody can go on there and follow you guys. We obviously don't have a whole lot of races where people can follow your races this year. Hopefully hopefully we get through this situation together and we can actually get to a point where racing resumes. But just the same, plenty of hijinks and plenty of training going on over there. So you guys should go follow.
No racing, but plenty of shenanigans.
Yes.
And plenty of Strava comms
Strava
and so on. So
exactly. Got to use that fitness somehow. Well, thanks, guys. We will talk to you all next time. Hopefully we'll have you on for a short track analysis soon.
Yeah, hopefully.
That'd be
Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
Hey, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Pete.
And if you like this video, you should subscribe to our channel. There's a lot more where that came from. And you can give us a thumbs up on this video down below.
If there was something you didn't like, give us a thumbs down and tell us what we could do better in the comments below.
If you want to get answers to your coaching questions, you can check out the videos over here.
And if you want to see more race analysis videos, check them out right here.
And if you want to become a faster cyclist, you should head over to TrainerRoad.com. It works. It's how Pete's so fast.
Well, sort of fast.